Have you ever had an all-star candidate break your heart? I'm sure you probably have, and what I'm going to paint for you is a very common picture. Let's say you have a critical opening and you find a candidate who is a literal all-star. She's going to make you look golden to senior management. She has all the chops to blow your deliverables out of the water, and she's such a DNA match with your organization that she just might be the future of your organization. Quite frankly, she is the kind of all-star that is going to make you a much better leader. Best of all, she's a passive candidate, that elusive passive candidate. She's not actively interviewing, so when she interviewed with you, she told you that she wasn't looking at any other companies, her compensation is in line, and your recruiter says she is 100% slam dunk to accept an offer. You make her an offer for more than what she's looking for because you're feeling the love. And then bang, you're blindsided by a turn down with really no good explanation. Then, to make matters worse, a month later you notice a LinkedIn notification to congratulate this all-star on her new job with your competitor right down the road. It kind of sucks, right? Hey there, Jay Vennard here, the Robotics Recruiter. And today I'm going to share with you 3 core closing techniques that you need to implement the next time you're about to make an offer if you want to avoid that same exact scenario. What I just described to you, maybe it doesn't happen every single time, but it happens more often than most realize, especially when you don't follow these key closing steps. Trust me, in today's viciously competitive market for all-star talent, you don't want to roll the dice on your offer because, quite frankly, luck is not a strategy for success, especially in today's market. Now, this scenario is a classic example of taking your eyes off the coverage just long enough for your pass to be intercepted in the end zone, and you've done too much work at this point driving the ball down the field into the red zone, or in this case, bringing the candidate through the initial assessment, the competency interview, several DNA interviews, and the reference check, just to make a rookie mistake at the 1-yard line and have your pass picked off by the opposing team, or in this case, a competing company. With that said, I'm going to teach you these 3 closing techniques to help you solve that. Now, I do want to say something about the offer stage before I get into those techniques, and it's something that most hiring executives forget. The interviewing process is emotionally charged and very stressful, but it's also exciting for the candidate. Unfortunately, the majority of hiring managers seem to forget that fact. It's impossible not to let our emotions and our sense of self-worth get tied up in the interview process, and it all starts when the candidate is flattered that your company sees so much value in her that you hired a headhunter like me to recruit her out of the blue. Then they start feeling intrigued by your organization's no-brainer employer value proposition, which, by the way, if you don't have one, you need to get one. This is actually something we can help you with. Then, as they pass through your rigorous screening process, it only cements the fact of how good they are in their own heads. Because a screening process, well, at least a rigorous screening process, only makes them want you more because all-stars love to be tested, and they want to work with an organization that has very high standards. This is an example of a classic phenomenon in the world of seduction called push-pull. Let me explain. You push by aggressively recruiting. That's me. And then you pull back and hold the candidate at arm's length while you're screening them. Then you push again when you bring them into your office and you start pulling out all of the stops. Then you push them away again as you further screen with your test drive or working interview. By the way, if you're not familiar with working interviews, you should be. If not, go watch my bulletproof interview video, and on that video, I explain it all. Now, what I described to you is, in essence, it's a back and forth seductive dance that creates a powerful attraction to your company. And that emotion just keeps ramping up the closer and closer the candidate gets to the offer stage, when you finally pop the question. Or should I say, make the offer. Now, I've seen countless hiring managers right at the 1 yard line make the rookie mistake of ending the dance and damaging the newly formed relationship. And they do this by either taking too long to make an offer, or maybe you're not communicative enough during the offer process, or maybe you make the most boneheaded mistake of them all and you make a lowball offer. Or maybe you change the job title, or you basically just forget that the candidate is a real human being that has to make a major life decision. My recommendation is this: put yourself in their shoes. You want to make sure that you are doing the push-pull courtship of a candidate until they show up for their very first day of work. It's important that you remember throughout the whole process that they are real human beings with real feelings. Candidates don't want to be pushed around, and they don't want to be played with, because you've got to remember, they don't need you. They're already well compensated. You approach them, their job is a known commodity, and yours simply, it's not. This is extremely important for you to hardwire in your brain. You need them more than they need you. And trust me on this one. Now, before we get into these closing techniques, I do want to kind of shift your mindset a bit, because what we're looking to do in any hiring decision is to de-risk the hire. But on the flip side, our all-star candidates are looking to do the exact same thing. They're looking to de-risk the job change process. Remember, she may not need your job. Her current job is a known commodity, yours is not, no matter how good it may seem. Again, any change, even with a company with a no-brainer employer value proposition, is inherently risky. Candidates often wonder, will the opportunity be the same as you promised? Will you and the candidate even get along? Or here's the big one: what kind of leader are you when you're not putting your best foot forward? Will the work be satisfied? Or are there inherent problems that they're just not seeing that could derail your chances of success as a leader, and could also derail the candidate's own career momentum? You see, all of this stuff is going on in the candidate's head during the interview process, and it's a lot. It's stressful. A career move could have a lasting impact in their career. So it's very important that you actively work to de-risk the hiring decision-making process for the candidate at every single stage in the process. So what does that mean? It means that, just like Alec Baldwin said in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, great movie by the way, you must always be closing. Now, in order to de-risk this process, remember, use these 3 closing techniques that, if you utilize them properly, will work to de-risk the candidate's decision to move in their head and will greatly increase your odds of an offer acceptance. With that said, let's talk about the first pillar, and that is the opportunity gap. You see, the opportunity gap is simply the growth and the stretch that the candidate will experience working for you compared to their current situation. See, while compensation is almost certainly going to be part of this opportunity gap, it's usually only one part of a whole ecosystem that includes challenge, new skills, greater responsibility, enhanced career opportunities, greater social responsibilities, etc., etc., etc. In other words, it's the contrast your employer value proposition has compared to their current job. The opportunity gap is where the candidate will discuss with their friends and family as your opportunity is being evaluated, and even more so when an offer is made. It's what's going to offset something like a smaller increase in compensation than maybe what was expected. Or maybe if they do get a counteroffer, that opportunity gap is what's going to keep them from accepting a counteroffer or an offer from a competitor. So the opportunity gap, in essence, becomes the basis for the decision-making criteria that your candidate will use to justify the change in their heads. And don't think you can create this gap at the end of the process, because if you do, and you wait and your offer is extended late, quite frankly, you're going to be too late. This needs to be done at the very beginning of the process, and you and your recruiter should be actively creating and widening this gap throughout the whole process. You do so by listening, advising, asking challenging questions, and as this opportunity gap is created, a set of decision-making criteria will emerge that you'll use to pre-close the candidate throughout the whole process. It's important to remind the candidate of the gap between their current role and the opportunity they envision with your company. And it isn't so much about selling the candidate, it's more like being a career counselor. Furthermore, you and your recruiter should be meeting the candidate exactly where they're at. You want to be able to help them create this vision of where they want to be in their careers compared to where they are right now. You want to lead them through this opportunity gap. And to do so, they need your insight. They also need your trust, and they need your listening skills. And because the right opportunity will change their life, you must act as a career counselor. I cannot stress that enough. You must lead them to where they want to go. They've got wants and needs, and they've got a desire for their career. And this is very important for you to remember. Now, that leads me to the second closing pillar, and that is the career wound. It's very difficult to create an opportunity gap without a career wound. And basically, in a sense, what a career wound is something in the candidate's current situation that they're greatly unsatisfied with. It's basically the thorn in their side, if you will. This is what causes the initial motivation to make a job change in the first place. Just like no marriage is perfect, no employer-employee relationship is ever perfect either, and a passive all-star candidate wouldn't have wandering eyes if everything was hunky-dory back on the home front. This career wound at its very core is the pain the candidate is feeling. And because we're all hardwired to run from pain oftentimes, we aren't acutely aware of the pain in our lives until it's illuminated by someone who is an expert in that area. To that end, you should have a recruiter, or at least expect your recruiter to have enough experience and expertise in this area to act like a doctor who diagnosed the candidate's acute pain and help guide them in a way to present your employer value proposition as a cure to their pain. Now, it's important to note that every pain causes additional frustrations and stresses that are seemingly unrelated to the problem at first glance. We call these rippling pains. You know how relationship problems can impact self-confidence, which impacts business, and then business problems impact stress levels, which impacts relationships. It's a vicious and unforgiving cycle. When you can point out this chain of events in detail about how their job is affecting their personal life or their family life, and tie it back into the pain of their current career wound, this causes a ripple effect in their mind, much like a rock tossed into the pond, because it creates ripples throughout every area of their life. And it serves as an incredibly powerful closing technique because most people simply just ignore these ripple effects because of the pain they bring. Now, if you and your recruiter can uncover the pain in their current situation and establish that pain's ripple effects in the candidate's own personal pond, then you'll be able to establish what their true career wound is and help you design how your employer value proposition will make their life better. This is a very important step. So now onto the third pillar, the debrief, affirmation, and acceptance. You see, illuminating the career wound and establishing the opportunity gap between their current situation and your employer value proposition won't do you any good unless you constantly and actively use that information during the interview process. It's important that throughout the process, right from the first conversation with the recruiter until the day they start, the day they actually put their butt in the seat, you should fully debrief the candidate after every step in the process and reaffirm their desire to make the change every single time. Ask repeatedly, even if it becomes annoying, what do they like about your opportunity? Are there any concerns? Has anything changed? Are they looking at other opportunities elsewhere? Remember, just because they were only looking at your opportunity at week 1 doesn't mean by week 2 they aren't interviewing with your competitors, even if they're a passive candidate. Think about this. The moment they start looking at your opportunity, they're no longer officially a passive candidate. So you must ask, because if you don't, they won't tell you otherwise. Next, affirm their opportunity gap and affirm their career wound. Again, remind them of the pain that they're in, then gain acceptance on the key parts of your opportunity and your offer before they move forward in the process. If they can't commit to those key parts, the deal isn't dead, but you must try to determine why and get it resolved for them before moving the candidate to the next stage. This is very important, because if you don't handle objections early, before they fester and rear their ugly head at the offer stage, you risk the chance of your offer being turned down at the 11th hour. You see, candidates often make decisions without having all the information that they need to make an informed one, and that causes buyer's remorse. It's this constant debrief, reaffirmation, and gaining acceptance at every single stage that helps keep the candidate from developing that buyer's remorse. It keeps them informed, fully informed. Have you ever heard the rule in sales? People don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. If you follow this rule at every single stage, you will create an opportunity where you don't have to sell at the end of the process. You will give them an offer that they can't wait to accept. So put them in a position where they would love to buy your offer, but not have to be sold on your offer. That's how you create the momentum to get the ball across the goal line and actually land that all-star candidate. Now, if you want to learn how to actually make the offer, from trial close to the verbal offer to the written offer, even handling post-offer acceptance and how to navigate through the minefield of counteroffers, and by the way, learn everything you need to know about hiring all-stars, then what I want you to do is click below to download the Automation and Robotics All-Star Playbook. It's this bad boy right here that takes you through step-by-step on how to eliminate all mishires, build top-performing elite teams, and absolutely crush all expectations. Now, quite frankly, this guide is sorely needed in our industry because nobody's teaching leaders how to hire effectively, and it's killing careers. And it's my mission to change that. Just imagine if you could be the leader who could field a top 10 team consistently, regardless of the company and regardless of the economic environment. If you could do that, you'd be able to write your own ticket and be the Hall of Fame leader that the best companies hire me to find. But it all starts here. So download my free guide. I promise you there will be a few aha ideas sitting there waiting for you. And of course, like always, if you need any additional one-on-one help, whether you're a leader looking to finally break into the corner office, or you absolutely need to build an all-star team, you can also book a call with me directly at theroboticsrecruiter.com. On the site, click on the Need Talent button, and on the call, we'll assess what you're doing now, what's working, what's not working, and I'll let you know if we can even help. Even if it's not the right fit now, and it may not be, and that's okay, we'll at least make 100% sure that you walk away with the right strategies that you can use today to increase your hiring success. Now, you owe it to your organization, you owe it to your team members, and most of all, you owe it to yourself, your family, and your own career. With that said, I look forward to chatting with you, and here's to your career success.